Welcome to the Jarol SVU channel, and today, after a total of 6 decks with new leaders that I presented in the previous videos, we will discuss as many as 10 of my decks with old leaders, but of course using the 5th set. The order in which I will present these decks is the ranking from the weakest to the strongest according to the strength that I attribute to them at the moment. Let's start. Hand Blue is a deck that I started working on at the end of the 4th set because I unexpectedly got Luke. It's a pretty strong deck, in my opinion either the best deck with Han 1 or the second best after the green version. The fact that Luke, Obi-Wan, Yoda and blue removals can play are big advantages. Village Protectors, Cannon and Concordo Interceptors also make a big difference. The main disadvantage is the lack of the ramp, but we still have a good place for 4 here, so it's not a big problem. The new set didn't bring much here. I haven't tried the version with Force Base yet and I doubt it's better. The only card that survived here after testing is Vato. The possibility of playing it in the first or second turn is the most interesting, then it can start to grow a lot or give us cards that we obviously need a lot when playing Han to use a lot of his skill. So it can become a big problem for the opponent, if no you can simply resource it. Solid deck, but it is accompanied by most of the problems of hero midrange decks, so I did not make it higher on the list. Pulp Colossus in 9th place. Solid deck, especially when playing little against aggro, although this matchup thanks to Colossus and new cards looked better in tests than I expected. Graceful Pergil as our slightly bigger Bright Hope for 5 to 7, useful to block space. Praetorian Guard for 3 to 5 to have more options for Sentinel on the ground. This deck looks really solid in tests, but a big problem against aggro still exists. Cat Data Vault in 8th place, solid deck that got solid reinforcements. Aura Sync, great turn 1 play. Underworld 1-4, 3-4-1 attack, in addition hidden. Nihil Marauder for free, only 1-5, but as many as 3 raid. Also Underworld, so of course Cat's Pink work. Machion for 6-7, very strong statistics and doubling the ride of all units in addition Underworld. So it's a solid synergy with Cat, you come out with Cat, play it, ping it for 2 and Cat doesn't have ride 2 but ride 4. And if you also have other ride units on the table, the threat to the opponent is even greater. So it's a card that I think improves the matchup a bit against soft control decks, which has traditionally been the worst for Cat. Nevertheless, although these are nice buffs, it doesn't seem that they will make this deck S tier. Vader Green got a few new cards. Unfortunately, after initial tests, it turned out that 2 I Am Your Father are the minimum in a meta where about half of the decks play 4-stroke. Therefore, only HK 47 survived after a difficult test. 2-4 is exceptionally solid in this deck. Apart from him, we have only easy to kill turn 1 plays. Apart from the statistics, the HK ability is also very strong in this deck. Aggro and midrange often do not have time to kill him and take several damage from him in the base during the game, because this deck is of course still soft control. Yoda in 6th place, still a very strong deck. Yaddle is another very strong turn 1 play for this deck. 2-4 Restore 1 is a strong, and the attack on ability to give others Jedi Restore can also be important because we have many Jedi in this deck. Obi-Wan is another powerful 3-drop. 3-5 as if that wasn't enough, he has a Sentinel when entering and gets it again when playing a Force unit. Sabine Isiel in 5th place. Unsurprisingly, this deck is still powerful also against new decks. The only reinforcement is Yoda's Sword, which doesn't give much compared to the other options, but it's strong enough to be here due to its low price. I think that against Han 2 or Talzin, Sabine Yellow or Wedge Yellow are safer options than Sabine Isiel due to its greater strength in space, but this for Sabine Yellow there is a small difference between this deck and Wedge, now even smaller because I decided to give up the Sabine unit to further strengthen this deck in space with a new ship for 2-3-2. Sabine Yellow is more flexible than Wedge because it has stronger units on the ground, but in the current meta I think it doesn't matter much. Third place is Wedge, only one new card, a 3-2 ship instead of 2-2 ship that gives a bonus when it has a pilot. A regular 3-2 is a bit more consistent, but most of the new decks join the already large group of easy matchups for Wedge. Force synergies doesn't help much against the gigantic pressure in space that Wedge imposes. and Force bases have less than 40 HP. So far I'm very happy playing Wedge, and I think is one of the strongest options in the game at the moment. Krennic had to be in second place, blue-green villain is still the best combination in the game, Vader from ECL improves the situation a lot on 6 resources, Krennic gives important anti-aggro healing of the base, the threat of one-shot Krennic is no longer really big, either you have ramp or the opponent doesn't not draw Poe, Wrecker or Plo Koon, or you draw Vader and after one shot you easily finish off Poe, Wrecker or Plo Koon, and in addition you kill an enemy unit regardless of its size, regardless of whether is the leader. The rest is basically a standard deck of this type, just with ECL to use Vader consistently. In this archetype ECL was obsolete, but now Vader makes the restore of Krennic reduce the problems of the base quite a bit. Currently, in my opinion, this is a comparable choice to Kira, hence the name of the version that I played in the TTI Top Cut. First in place is Kira. As for the new cards in this deck, they are not even necessary. Ogdo has synergy with Kira, but it is quite slow because only for 4 resources he will be able to attack something for 5. The argument for leaving him here is the possibility of playing Barrage on him for 7. It can be a great alternative when the opponent kills Kira immediately after it comes out. Craving power can win the game, but it is situational, and to put it here you had to remove one rival's fall, which can be painful in some matchups. Owen Lars is an additional restore and sometimes drawing cards from his when defeated. To prevent him from dying too quickly, you can give him a shield already on the first turn. However, both Lars and Ogdo weaken Vader a bit, so it is not even certain that they will stay in the deck in the long run. And the same applies to Craving Power. For some time I thought that maybe Krennic on ECL would be even a little better thanks to having the new Vader, but in further tests it quickly turned out that Kira is more consistent. Krennic simply has much more problems with controlling the opponent's table in general. Kira's deploy and damaging everything by half is an extremely powerful effect. Krennic also had a harder time finding a target for Barrage, which is very important in this type of deck. If Krennic draws Vader, of course he has a lot of help in stabilizing the situation, but Vader also has his limitations. The main one is that yes, he kills anything, but apart from that, the second unit with a maximum of 5 HP. In this way, for example, Chirrut is a big problem here. It can also happen that you have to use ECL earlier or no draw Vader. Krennic has a new Vader, but Kira has a Child Sen, which is still very powerful. I still have no problems playing Kira in almost any matchup. All new decks except Hunt to Blue are definitely too weak for Kira in my tests so far. At the moment I would be very surprised if any deck would be better than Kira. Of course, this does not mean that it will win everything in this set. Probably Force decks will be popular at the beginning. If at the Galactic Championships people come up with terrible idea of playing Kira on ECL, in my opinion Vader will not save this deck and people will remember this tournament as a defeat for Kira. However, if there is at least 5% of Kira 30 or Data Vault, I think Kira will win, and finally the topic of banning this leader will appear, which in combination with Green, with Ban and Boba, if not for this ban the story could have turned out much differently, is simply too strong for almost all other decks. As you can see, 20 Petranaki games with this deck against various potentially strong decks with Legends of the Force yielded a 19% success rate. To be even more illogical, it should have been 95%, but against Anakin Yellow I made the mistake of thinking it was an aggro or midrange deck, when in fact it was an extreme discard deck. Of course, Petranaki is not a collection of the absolute best players in the world, but in my opinion it shows more and more over time because people are simply getting better at this game, and for example Krennic has a lot of problems against Obi-Wan, Talzin or Han 2 when Kira simply crushes the opponent. Okay, so thanks for today, leave a like and subscribe. Next week probably my unpopular opinions or thoughts about the early meta of Legends of the Force. Bye.